There is the case where there being rapture as a factor for awakening present within. He discerns that rapture as a factor for awakening is present within me. Or there being no rapture as a factor for awakening present within, he discerns that rapture as a factor for awakening is not present within me. He discerns how there is the arising of unarisen rapture as a factor for awakening, and he discerns how there is the culmination of the development of rapture as a factor for awakening once it has arisen. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dear noble friends, we are gathered here for another Dhamma discussion on our weekly program that is happening on Wednesdays. For the Dhamma discussion, the topic we have selected and we have been discussing for some time is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And as you all remember, the 4 foundations are how you can become mindful of the body, and being mindful of the feelings, and being mindful of the mind, and being mindful of the phenomena. Now we have discussed almost 80-85% of the discourse. At present, we are discussing 4th chapter of the phenomena. So the other chapters that we have completed from the last chapter of phenomena is the chapter on hindrances we have completed, chapter on aggregates, linking aggregates we have completed, chapter on sense faculties we have completed. Now we have come to the spiritual side of the phenomena. And spiritual side is the first thing that the Blessed One is mentioning is the factors for awakening. For awakening, or in other words, for enlightenment, or in other words, to achieve the final liberation, there are certain factors. And there are 7 of them. And of those 7, in the last few weeks, we have discussed 1, 2, 3 of the factors. The 7 factors are mindfulness as a factor for awakening, and investigation of states as an awakening factor, and energy as an awakening factor. Today we are discussing the rapture factor, and then we are discussing the tranquility factor, and then we are discussing sorry, not the tranquility factor, happiness factor, and there is another term which I don't remember straight away, and then the tranquility factor, and then finally the equanimity factor. So before we come on to today's topic, which is the mindfulness or the rapture as a factor for awakening, I would like to emphasize that this particular section in 4 foundations of mindfulness does not explain what rapture is. From the stanza I just recited, what the Blessed One says is, you know when the rapture is present, and when the rapture is not present, you know that as well. And you know when the unarisen rapture is arising, and you know arisen rapture when it has culminated and developed, right? So only thing the Blessed One says here is, even the rapture, not only rapture, even the other 3 that we have already discussed, and the balance 3 that we are to discuss, what the 4 foundations of mindfulness discourse says is, they are changing. They will be with you at certain times, at certain times they won't be with you. And when it goes, it will not go forever. It might come back. And when it comes back, it might develop further. Coming back means once it is gone, you get another opportunity to master it. So in other words, the Blessed One is simply trying to show that we don't have even a control over those things. There is no self-identification even on those things. And even those things are not permanent. But when we practice, when we give up everything and come to the practice, we say, okay, I have given up all those things because I can hold on to this. Blessed One says here, no, 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 no. Right? So I want to emphasize that before getting on to details of rapture, because it is a good idea for you to understand what rapture is before understanding its impermanence. So you know when it arises, okay, it has arisen, and when it is not there, it is not there. And when it develops, you know that it is developing. And that might help, not straight away, not just because you listen to this talk, but after listening, after practicing for a long time, then one day it might click you, okay, this is what you mean by rapture. Because when rapture is coming, it is not making an announcement. Here, rapture is coming, be ready. Right? So you will know what it is only after doing it for some time. Right? So, so simply what I want to say is, whether you know rapture or not, whether you know any other faculty here is or not, if you keep the mindfulness to the fore, it will happen. Because Buddha enlightened without knowing any of those things. So that ability even we have. Only thing what we should do is keep the mindfulness to the fore. Keep the mindfulness in the driving seat. Keep the mindfulness as the main driver of our survival, of our living. So naturally what you cultivate is the path towards Nibbana. So having said that, having emphasized that, so we will just have a quick summary of the other factors that we have discussed. We have discussed mindfulness as a factor for awakening. And in that, what the Blessed One says is, or the definitions of these factors for awakening are given in another discourse, which is called Discourse on Mindfulness in Breathing. And in that discourse, for each of these, the Blessed One has given the definition. So the definitions for mindfulness as a factor for awakening is when you have unremitting mindfulness, when you have unwavering mindfulness, when you have unconfused mindfulness, irrespective of the base, it may be on your body, it may be on your feelings, it may be on your mind, it may be on phenomena, whatever it is, if you have unremitting mindfulness, then that is the start of your factor for awakening of mindfulness. And I want to emphasize the fact that it is unremitting mindfulness. It is not unremitting object. When some people are explaining this, they are saying when your attention is 100% on the object. No, your object may change, but you have unremitting mindfulness over this changing phenomena in the universe. You are not shattered by it. You are not confused by it. You are not challenged by it. You simply maintain your awareness. Right? So when you have that ability, then it is a factor for awakening, right? Because you are going through everything, right? Okay. Going through, when I say going through everything, it takes you to another level. When you have unremitting mindfulness, it takes you to another level. And that level is the second one that the Blessed One is saying in that discourse. It is having a link, it is having a linear relationship. It has a link to the one before. So the second one is the investigation of states. In the investigation of states, the definition given is like this. Arising from unremitting mindfulness, one examines, analyzes, and comes to comprehension of that quality of wisdom with discernment. Which means since you have this unconfused, unwavering mindfulness, it goes through whatever challenge or whatever object that comes your way, and then you will have to let it happen. You don't step back, right? And that is mentioned here as you examine, analyze, and comprehend what is happening. That is the investigation. In other words, you let it happen and you allow it to become an investigation of the thing that you have not seen. You examine, analyze, and comprehend because you have not been there in the past. This ability has come only when you have unremitting mindfulness. Say, for example, a very simple example that most of you may have gone through. When you observe your breath shallows. It gets subtler, right? So if you become confused, or you may think, oh, I need that gross breath. What is happening to my breath? Is my oxygen losing? And you get panic. Then you will not allow that investigation water. You don't try to sail into that uncharted water. In the investigation, what happens is you let it happen and then see what's happening. And you do it over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. Then you will be able to comprehend what is going on, right? So that is called investigation of states, and that becomes another factor, which is led by mindfulness. So when you do this investigation, when you allow this investigation quality to develop within you, derived from that, the Blessed One is mentioning, in one who examines, analyzes, and comes to comprehension of that quality of wisdom with discernment, tireless energy is aroused. Right? So when you go to an unknown area, you become afraid. You start suspecting. You start asking questions. You think that you have gone the wrong way. But without doing that, you let it happen, means you develop a new energy, new effort, right? You become a hero to face anything. So that quality is developed when you allow the investigation to happen. So these are interlinked. If you allow the investigation to happen, and with the same thing, your energy faculty also develops. If you don't have that energy, you will not go to that area. You will make your breath gross once again. And there are many people doing it. And even I myself have done. Initially, when you go to those things, you become panic. Oh, what is happening? And take a deep breath and come back to life. And you do that. And that's natural. But you don't do it every day. You gradually learn that this is something that is happening. You let it happen. So, which means that investigation is allowing you to develop your energy, develop your courage, develop your ability to face the challenges. And when you develop that ability, which is called a tireless energy, and that becomes another factor for awakening, which is the third one. And in the last few sessions, we discussed how it evolves. There are 8 stages of evolution when it comes to the energy as a factor for awakening. The 8 stages or the 7 stages before awakening is 4 right exertions. So you should be able to remember we discussed about unarisen, arisen unwholesome states and unarisen unwholesome states, and arisen wholesome state, unarisen wholesome states, what you will do. And those are the 4 right exertions. And after 4 right exertions, you will have the grip of your practice. Then it is called energy as a base for spiritual power. And then it evolves into spiritual faculty. And then it evolves into spiritual power itself. And then only it becomes awakened. So it becomes a spiritual faculty when you see both the sides. When you see, at times you are very energetic, at times you are very lethargic, which means now you see both the sides. When you see both the sides, it is developed as a faculty. And when you start not worrying about being lethargic, in other words, when you become lethargic, if you take that also under mindfulness, and when you become mindfulness of that lethargy as well, energy becomes not just a faculty, energy becomes a power, because you give a boost to it with the awareness, right? So that lethargic situation will not put you down. It energizes you more with mindfulness. So then it becomes a power. And then only it becomes tireless. Otherwise, as a faculty, it is very tiring. But sometimes, oh, I love go and sit and go and walk. You're so energized, so enthusiastic. And there are times I hate. And then it is very tiring for you. You want to do the practice, but still you don't feel doing it. What the heck, you may complain yourself. So that tiresome will come into you. But if you take that under mindfulness, and if you become mindfulness of that lethargy, what happens is lethargy becomes lethargy, and will not be able to interfere with your mind anymore. Then it becomes tireless after that. Right? So that is how it becomes an awakening factor. So we have discussed that in detail in the previous discussions. Now, here comes the next one in the list, which is rapture. That is today's topic. So even here, we see a linear relationship with energy, right? The definition given in the definitions given in the discourse for mindfulness in breathing, Blessed One says like this: in one who has aroused energy, unworldly rapture arises. On that occasion, the rapture enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it. And by development, it comes to fulfillment in him, right? So this is how it is happening. It's very important few terms in this definition. It says, in one who has aroused energy. The word aroused is very important. As soon as the energy arises, energy is arisen, that is enough for you to get the rapture. It is not necessary to go to the 3 stages of development. Not that you it is aroused and then you develop it and then fulfill it. Those are the 3 stages. It is not necessary to go to those 3 stages for the rapture to arise. The Blessed One says, as soon as the energies arise, with that, as a complement, you get the prize. The rapture comes in, right? So it is not just the rapture. We know rapture is coming from many things. Blessed One is specifying what rapture it is. The rapture he is talking here is unworldly rapture, which means you will not get it from your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. Did I miss anything? Or doing anything that people do on Friday evening and Saturdays, you get rapture. But all those are worldly raptures, worldly excitement. But here the Blessed One is saying something that you can't find anywhere in any of those shops or hotels or clubs or bars, or not even in your bedroom, right? So it's it's beyond the worldly raptures, and it's an unworldly rapture. I'll come to that in a minute. So it is coming directly from the energy, and energy has come from the investigation of states. Investigation state has come from mindfulness. So that is, if you go back, if you come forward, mindfulness is leading to investigation of states. Investigation of states is leading to energy. Energy is leading to unworldly rapture. So before coming on to rapture, now here is something that is very interesting. A lot of people complain about Buddha, that he is such a nihilistic person. He is talking only about negative things. He is talking only about suffering, 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 suffering all the time. And once I remember, what's her name? There was a woman coming here. Who is that? Chatu, who was
Leanne?
Leanne. When Leanne was here, Leanne asked me to give some book to read. And I got a nice book from one of the famous Burmese monks. And I gave her the book, and she has read the book. And after a couple of weeks, she gave, I don't want this book. And I asked, why? No, they say birth is suffering. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Unless my father and mother has not given me this beautiful life, I would have been here and I won't be here. How can it be suffering? So I explained to her, but I'm not quite sure whether she was convinced, and that is why she's not coming here anymore. I think she has some other things to do. That is why she's not coming. Otherwise, she's coming to our retreats and things like that. So what I want to say is, it's a general complaint that was there even when the Buddha was living. It is there even now, because he's talking only about suffering. So this is an answer to that. He's not only talking about suffering. He's talking about suffering for you to show that there is another side, another world, and that world is unworldly world. We are entangled in the worldly raptures, so therefore you don't have an opportunity to go to the refined area. You don't have an opportunity to go to the better area. So you are living with known areas. You don't have an opportunity to go to the unknown area. One who has gone to the unknown area is very clearly seeing the known area is suffering. As simple as that. That is what he says. People are entangled in suffering, and that is why he is talking about his main teaching, the only teaching, the first teaching he made on a full moon day, like today. Today is full moon day of the month of July. And in that month, only the Blessed One gave his first sermon to the 5 ascetics. And in that first sermon, he mentioned that there are 4 noble truths. The 4 noble truths are truth of suffering, cause of suffering, eradication of suffering, and path to eradicate suffering. So that was his finding. That was his teaching, the main teaching. And he said, this teaching has never been explained to the universe before. So, because he is talking suffering in this manner, he has been ridiculed with nicknames, and he has been called Akiriyavado, Apagabbo, Ajugujjo. Those are Pali terms. Akiriyavado means he's one who doesn't do anything. Non-active person, inactive person, right? Apagabbo means he's one who is not allowing people to marry, and he's encouraging celibacy. So he's not allowing people to develop their offspring. So he was blamed and he was called Apagabbo. And Ajugujjo. Ajugujjo means what he is talking is very confusing. What? Unworldly? Where is that? And it's just one example. And some of the things that he's saying cannot be comprehended by the rational intellect. You should be very rational. You should be a person to talk out, think outside the box, see outside the box. Then only you will be honest to yourself. Otherwise, you will be cheating yourself. So he was ridiculed by saying all these things. He was not bothered what other people said. And he has told them, go ahead and do what you are doing. I'm not asking you to come. You came to me and I'm telling what I should tell. And then Buddha's advice is, for all these things, just be aware and just observe. Then he was called, you are a time waster. You are wasting time, not only your time, you are wasting everybody's time. Because when we come to mindfulness, we ask you to sit and observe. We ask you to just walk up and down and observe. What do you get? Do you get at least 10 cents to buy a lolly? You don't get anything. So we are talking about labor, which is very expensive. And how much is Chatu paid an hour? How much is Sanjay paid an hour? And how much is I'm sorry, I forgot your name. How much are we paid an hour? So that's if you just walk for 1 hour, and if you sit for 1 hour, you lost all those money. So therefore, the Blessed One says, the Blessed One was blamed for wasting money. And for us to just be aware and observe is a very difficult thing. We always want to do something. We have that mentality of doing things, of willful doing things, of volitional activity. So therefore, one may see that this is a waste of time and these people don't have anything to do, that is why they are doing it. And so it is natural, people call him names. So that is because our mind is full of activism. Administrations are into so many activities. And protesters are also a lot of activities. They are activists, right? This activist, that activist. And that is what the people want. That is what the world wants. And therefore, from the school to the PhD, they are teaching us to do things. And from the janitor of the office to the CEO, every day they want to do things. Every year they want to prepare a budget. And every year the profit of the budget should go up by this much. So it never ends. And we are always looking for improvement and better ways. And no one has found, by preparing budgets, by preparing projections, by doing work scheduling, by doing this, by doing that. And ultimately what happens is, after some time, we feel so tired going in this rat race. And sometimes we understand that we are in a rat race only when we are close to death. But here, most of us are fortunate to understand that there is another side to life. Yes, of course, we need, when we live in the lay world, nobody is coming and feeding you. Nobody is coming and giving you shelter. Nobody is coming and giving you clothing. Nobody is coming and giving you necessary medication. So you will have to find a way to afford those things. So you will have to do something. Agree. Do those things for that necessity. So far as a monkey is concerned, nothing to worry. You eat whatever you get, you wear whatever robe you get, and you get medicine. And if you don't get medicine, the Blessed One has said, the only medication I can prescribe you is drink your own urine. And that's the best medication that you have. So even the science is proving that you will be looking younger. Your rejuvenation will happen if you have your own urine, right? So that is why you look so young. Um, and so it takes some time for you to understand. Sometimes for some people, I'm not talking about the people in the program. For some people, it may be too late to understand. They realize it. Then by the time they realize, they can't walk. By the time they realize, they are bedridden. But here, there are people who have understood it, and they have taken an alternative and started doing it. When we are able, when we are unable, there is nothing you can do, although you realize, right? So it's great to see that people are into it. And in Sri Lanka today, they have declared curfew and emergency and all that. But there were about 50 people in the SEAL program, and everyone was waiting till evening. So there are people like that. So they don't care what happens in the rest of the world. And we have another issue to sort out, and they get involved in it. And they don't bother why people are talking about, why people are calling Buddha name, why people are calling Buddha a time waster, why people are calling those who are practicing are time wasters. They don't bother, because they see that there is something called unworldly rapture, and we can get there in this very own life. And why the Blessed One was talking about suffering is therefore not to make you suffer, but to show you that there is a problem. That is what he simply does. And we are so obsessed with the suffering, and we don't even want to hear the word suffering, because that very suffering, we are very pleased with it. We enjoy that. That is our enjoyment. So therefore, we don't want to call it suffering, although we suffer. So for that, we should know what to come out of suffering. We should know what suffering is. So this is why the Blessed One was discussing about suffering, and then only we can find a way out of it, and we can come out of it. So he talks about suffering to find the end of suffering, not to put you into more misery. But when you start, you may feel that you are in more misery, because when you are sitting for 45 minutes, when you just walk for 45 minutes, you may feel this is more suffering than staying at home and watching TV. So as soon as Buddha was therefore enlightened, he was so joyful, and he had a joyful utterance. And in that utterance, the Lord Buddha said, I who have been seeking the builder of this house, which is the body, failing to attain enlightenment, which would enable me to find him, have wandered through innumerable births in samsara. To be born again and again is indeed suffering. So after he realized that, he knew that he has been dying and being born again and again in the existence. And that has been a suffering. That has been a suffering, and that is why he is talking about suffering. And he is talking about suffering because he found a way. In the same utterance, he says, or in the next utterance, he says, "O the householder, you are seen, you shall build no house. All your rafters are broken. Your roof tree is destroyed. My mind has reached the unconditioned. The end of craving has been attained, which is the liberation." So you need to know that suffering. You should see that suffering. Then only you will see the cause for suffering. And why we need this enlightenment factors is to understand the suffering in the path itself. That is what the Blessed One is slowly showing us, right? If I take the point that I emphasized at the beginning, Blessed One is not explaining mindfulness as a factor for awakening. Blessed One is not explaining investigation as a factor. Blessed One is not explaining the energy as a factor. Blessed One is not explaining rapture as a factor. But what he says here is that they are changing. What it means is, since they are changing, if you try to make it permanent, then still you have the ability to suffer. But if you observe with that unremitting mindfulness, then you come out of suffering, right? So even here, the Blessed One, even in the enlightenment factors, Blessed One is trying to show the trap we can get into, right? So therefore, you need to go even through this to see the suffering. Otherwise, when you're in the normal world, you don't understand this. Now your mind is so sharp. You can see things are changing, and those changing things I'm trying to hold on to. I'm trying to make an identification with them. So I suffer. So that's the reason why that is the point that he's trying to make in this discourse, in the sentence that I recited at the very beginning. So coming back to rapture again, rapture is the starting point of that experience. Of what experience? To coming out of suffering, right? All this time we were talking about suffering, 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 but here unworldly rapture is giving you an indication that you are come to the other side that you had not seen. So therefore the term used by the Buddha is unworldly rapture. So if we take a bit of a dip into it, and I will explain it this way. When you take your attention, say for example, while walking, your attention goes to the entire leg movements. Your attention goes to the lower part of the body. And when your attention goes to the lower part of the body, you are able to see the what do you call when you lift the foot, what you feel and how you feel. You are able to see when you move the foot, where you are able to see what happens when you place the foot. You are able to see what you feel when you press the foot down, right? So you are engrossed with that. You are completely attentive to that. Your awareness is with the leg. So when that happens, your mind is no more with your sense faculties. You are not eating, you are not drinking, you are not seeing, you are not tasting, you are not sniffing anything. You don't have any tactile sensation other than the walking process, right? So your mind is not thinking unwanted things, mind is not wandering. You are with the lower part of the body. And not only that you are not with the sense faculties, you don't have even the sense desires. You don't have even the shadows of them. Not having thoughts means you have the shadows of the sense pleasures that you have had. You will have sense desire. Now here, when your attention is with the object, you don't have even the sense desire. And you don't have any shadows of the anger. You don't have any suspicions whether this is going right or wrong. You are not agitated to go to the next step. You are not worrying about the past. So you are out of these unwholesome states of mind. Right. So when you are out of sensual world, You're out of unwholesome states of the mind. You are just with your object. You know when the right foot is going. You know that it is right foot, and you can exactly label it and understand that it is right foot, and not only label it and understand. You see all the qualities involved in the process, right? So that when that happens, since you have given up your sense world and mentally your sense desire, it gives a huge relief to your mind. You have been battering your mind with all those sense desires and sense faculty requirements, and the mind is now having some time to breathe. Mind is at ease. Then it feels rapture, and that is called the first absorption. Right? You may have heard of jhana. Jhana means absorption, and in this will happen in the first absorption in this manner, right? So what the Blessed One says is in the first absorption, first jhana, secluded from sensual pleasures and from unwholesome states, is what I explained. I enter and dwell in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, and some call it thought and examination, with rapture and happiness, born of seclusion. That's very important. This rapture and happiness has not come from consuming anything. It has come from seclusion. You are secluded from sensual pleasures and unwholesome states of the mind. That gives huge relief. But of course, not entirely. You're with your object, either breath or the walking, and you see the details of that. But that's very little compared to the mad world you were in before meditation, right? So that is the starting of the rapture, right? So the Blessed One says that seclusion is giving you rapture and happiness. And it goes further. When you keep on practicing like this, there will have a point that you will understand. When you practice, it is very difficult to keep labeling. When you walk, right, left, is a bit of a nuisance, you may feel. Or when you do your sitting practice, you may be or may have had a time you were labeling it. When the in-breath is happening, you label it in, and out-breath is happening out. Right? That is called applied thoughts. Right? Because of that applied thought, you have the sustained thought, which is the details that you see of the breath, details that you see of the walking process. Right? Those are the sustained thought. So you may feel that this is a bit of another agitation, right? Another unwanted thing, because your mind is very relaxed now, and in that relaxed mind, this is giving unnecessary vibrations, right? So you may feel it is better for me to observe rather than labeling, right? So most of you now don't label when you practice. You sit and observe. You sit and not sit and walk. You just get into the path and walk. No labeling. And when you do that, there will have few moments. You don't label, but your attention is 100% with the walk. Your attention is 100% with the breath or with the body through the breath, right? Without labeling. And that is called the second absorption or the second jhana. That's again another unworldly rapture. Because again, you have come out of another friction that you had, another difficulty that you had, another pressure that you had. That was labeling, saying in, out, or right, left, saying that is a bit of a trouble. So you drop that. By dropping that, you entered into another seclusion. And that gives the second absorption. And we will see what the Blessed One says for the second absorption. For the second absorption of the second jhana, the Blessed One says, with the subsiding of applied and sustained thoughts, or thought and examination, some books say, I enter and dwell in the second jhana, which has internal confidence. That's the key. You have dropped labeling, but you drop labeling because you are confident now. Labeling is no longer required. I can handle it myself without labeling. You need help of somebody because you don't know how to do it. That is why when you were driving, when you are in 16 years old or 17 years old, your father or the mother is the best friend because you want to learn driving. You want to learn driving. And once you get the hang of the wheel, and you better if your parents are not around, you feel, because two drivers in the same car, right? So it's like that. You wanted someone to help you only until you get the confidence. Once you have the confidence, you don't want. So that is what is happening. Your rapture and happiness was born of the seclusion from the outside world because of labeling. But you drop the very same thing when it comes to the second, and gain internal confidence which you did not have before. And that gives, that internal confidence gives the unification of mind without applied and sustained thought, and has a rapture and happiness, now not born of seclusion, but born of concentration, which is the internal confidence. When you are more and more concentrated onto the object or objects that come your way, you are concentrated. It's not necessary to be just one object. Whatever that comes your way doesn't mind. Even the object is changing, doesn't mind. You are 100% onto it. You don't miss it at all, right? So it is born of this concentration, born of internal confidence. You have a unification of the mind. That is called the second jhana. And it goes further when you keep on practicing. And you keep on practicing. Now your mind has identified a way of being more and more free. Mind has identified, mind has learned the skill how to drop the friction, how to drop the friction and find the frictionless path, right? When it came from the sensual world to the first jhana, it realized with the help of the object or with the help of labeling, it realized sensual world and unwholesome states is a nuisance, so you drop that and came to the first jhana. When you are in the first jhana and when you keep on practicing that, then you realize labeling is another nuisance, you will have to drop that. Then you came to the second jhana. And in the second jhana, you have this rapture and happiness, and they are the two playing now, right? Rapture and happiness. And when it comes to the third jhana, it is identifying rapture is also nuisance. The third jhana, it's mentioning with the fading away as well of rapture, I dwell equanimous. It is not internal confidence now. I dwell equanimous. Equanimous means without any change in, without any effect in your mind, a balanced mind. With a balanced mind, I dwell equanimous and mindful and clearly comprehending. I experience happiness with the body. I enter and dwell in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare he is equanimous, mindful, and one who dwells happily. Right? So, when it comes to the third jhana, rapture is also dropped and happiness is left. So, let me explain you the difference between happiness and rapture. Rapture means because of the happiness that happens in the mind, because of the mental freedom that one experiences, because of the free mental process. The body is identifying the free mind in a way, that way is the rapture. Or in other words, the mind happiness is manifested on the body, and that manifestation is called the rapture. For example, when you do an exam, and if you get through the exam with very high distinction, your mind is very happy, and you feel that happiness in your body, right? Or when you see someone you have loved so much and not seen for a long time, seeing him or her is very, very happy. And that happiness can be manifested on the body, and that is why you jump and hug. That is why you don't feel where you are, but still keep kissing. That's the body rapture, right? The same thing is happening here. When the mind is freeing, when the mind is finding frictionless path, mind becomes happier, and that happiness gets manifested on the body, and that is what is called the rapture. And this rapture, or the bodily manifestation, is a trouble for the mind, right? And those bodily manifestations can come in many ways. I will explain that sometime in the next session. And then mind drops that friction as well, right? And not it intentionally drops. What you do is, when these physical manifestations are happening, just for example, you may have observed a situation when you are practicing. There are ants are crawling on your face, you may feel, and you may wipe them also, but there are no ants. After wiping, after some time, again the same thing happens. That is because that free mind is manifesting on the body, and that is just the start, and it develops and goes into very many different states, and I will explain that later. So like that, physical manifestations happen, and those physical manifestations, when it comes to the third jhana, what the Blessed One is saying is, you don't drop them. You simply become mindful of them. As a result, with the fading away of the rapture, so more the mind understands that this is a nuisance, happier the mind becomes, and lower the rapture gets. Right? So lower the rapture gets, happier the mind becomes. Right? So what you will have to do is, when that happens, don't be elated with it. Don't start loving it. Don't start clinging it. Simply be aware of that as well. Just be mindful of that. Then even that gradually fade away, like your breath became subtler. even the rapture becomes subtler, right? When the rapture becomes subtler, you may feel that is also fading away. You allow that to fade away, then the mind becomes even more freer. And then when the rapture fades away, the first thing that might happen is you may feel I have lost everything, and you may start crying. And there have been instances like that during Buddha's time. There have been monks who have been crying when they lost their absorption, and the Blessed One has blasted them. My dispensation, my teaching is not about going into absorption. My dispensation is going much beyond that. Have you broken any precepts? If you're not broken any precepts, don't worry about your stupid absorptions, and Blessed One has blackguarded. And so therefore, what happens is we may link on to them instead of being mindful. But coming into the third jhana, the important factor is, although the rapture is fading away, Blessed One says, he dwells equanimous. His equanimity is maintained. His mind is not shaking. His mind is not changing. He is maintaining a balanced mind. Okay, it doesn't matter, I am mindful of that is fading away. And that gives a friction that the mind was having, a troublemaker that the body was having, right? So, so far as the rapture is concerned, because we are talking rapture, after the third jhana, rapture is no more. Then you go to another unworldly. Now, rapture is the entrance, the gateway to the unworldly pleasure. And with that, it gradually takes your attention to the mind. And this happens especially when breathing. When the breathing is happening, when you have the gross breath, you are very alert, and you keep observing. When you keep observing, you see the long ones, you see the short ones, you see the rough ones, you see the shallow ones, and it becomes gradually reduced. And when it reduces, still you keep your attention. And when you keep your attention to the reducing breath or the shallowing breath or the refining breath, your attention becomes sharp. Right? So with that sharp attention, you observe the breath, and attention gradually goes into your body. So when the attention goes into your body, you may feel very little, very subtle, very refined breathing process, respiration. But you may feel the whole body because your attention is with the body. And that may be rapturous. Right? So you are not labeling in, out, out. You are not you don't just try to do it, and you don't have even the breath per se to see, but your attention is entirely with the body, and you see certain things that are happening in the body, like because of the breathing, the blood circulation, you may feel. Or you may feel each and every breath may affect are affecting all the cells, and you may feel, sort of bubbling up situation. You may feel like water boiling. When the water is boiling, it's bubbling up, and like that you may feel your body something, and that is the rapture. Another way that you may feel the rapture. So when that happens, you just keep on observing that, and even that gradually subsides, gradually fades away, and you go to another happy layer. So this is what is called unworldly rapture. It's not worldly rapture. It is coming out of dropping things, giving away things, giving up things. That is the renunciation. So the more you renounce, happier you become. Now it comes to a point even the gateway of the happy states, which is rapture, is getting dropped after third absorption. Right? So this is the entry to the unworldly rapture, or explaining the rapture as a factor for awakening, because this fracture is very important. It is motivating the practitioners to continue the practice, motivating the practitioners to do it over and over again. So this is why when someone starts it, it becomes an addiction. And that addiction is much stronger than the addiction to drugs, right? So this addiction is good because you go beyond the worldly pleasures that you have seen. So this requires some sort of feeding. It does not happen just because you sit and walk. It happens because you provide the necessary conditions. So we will talk those conditions and even beyond the food necessary for rapture, if possible, in the next session. So I'll wish you, until then, may you have a practice full of rapture and beyond, blessings of the Noble Triple J. So we have a few minutes about, or in fact, we're supposed to go there now. Anyway, the other people from the program may be waiting for me. So I would like to ask whether you have any questions.
Bhante, we don't have any questions from here.
Okay. Right. What about Sanjay? Do you have anything to ask?
No, no questions this week. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So if there are no questions, thank you very much for joining. We will, as usual, chant the usual stanzas.